Oida's question says, it's so inspiring. Was there any point in time where you were discriminated? If yes, how did you handle it? And I think that can tie back to your question around, you said there were actually some times that you did a fantastic work presentation, but because somebody else had a greater command of communication, they would actually give your work to somebody else to present. So I think that's actually something that is not nice. So how did you handle that, and any other form of discrimination that you might have faced being a Black person or a Black woman? How are you coping, really?
Yeah, and yeah, I have so many experiences. I have so many experiences, and obviously the micro ones that you actually don't you just can't pay attention to as well. I mean, I'd say, the example that I gave about people giving my managers giving my work to someone else, or where you're the right person for the job, but you don't get the project, right? Because you're just different, and people will use words like weird, she's, and you get, I did get that a lot at the start of my career. There were times when I would want a training opportunity, but then you just wouldn't get it. I've had many experiences like that, but I would say, even though in the moment I found it very, very frustrating, and I still sort of go through experiences right now, in my, as a manager, that sort of take you aback, and but what you can't do is let it get to you. It would be frustrating initially. You would feel sort of annoyed, upset, name it. But the best thing to do is to sort of use that to inspire yourself, to motivate yourself, to sort of identify why, let's forget the fact that, I'm Black and I'm female, right? Sometimes it might be because of, it might be because they feel you wouldn't make a good impression, or it might be because they feel you wouldn't be able to communicate well. So what I typically would do is to just objectively assess the situation and say, right, okay, Elizabeth, is there anything you could have done better? Is there anything you can improve on to avoid this next time? I've been in, I've been on client calls where, for example, I know that I haven't really presented well, not because I don't know what I need to say, but because, one, I just felt really nervous, right? And I've had situations where, I felt like if I had maybe done, if I'd built stronger relationships with the manager or with the person that is resourcing the role, then they would have considered me. So point I'm trying to make is, sometimes you have to objectively assess the situation and look at what you can do better and look at what you can learn from it, and use that to improve, improve the way you work. And trust me, I've done it so many times, and sometimes when I get remarks, because I did win an award in 2018, and last year, there was like a publication around women leaders in AI, which sort of featured me. And trust me, I wouldn't be in the position I am now if I hadn't gone through some of the discriminatory experiences that I'd gone through, because they fired me up. If you hate something so much and you don't want it to happen to you again, you have to learn from it. You have to think about how you can be 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, so it doesn't happen to you again. And it's unfortunate that sometimes you have to. That's you go through experiences like that. But the best thing you can do, as I say, is turn it into lemonade. Change it into something that sort of will motivate you and help you, become better.
That's so good, Elizabeth. Like, so good. Questions are coming up now. So yes, Ebel has a question. Do you have any advice for how Black professionals can groom themselves into better and articulate communicators to white leaders? Any personal examples you have would be great.
Right. Okay. So this is an interesting one, and I have a perspective now. It's just my perspective, and I think Well, the primary thing, and it's quite important, is just, and this is not about accents, you know, this is not about trying to like speak like you're from here, but I think it's working on the way we speak so people can understand better. It really does help, you know.
So do you mean like
um
slowing down
Slowing
or?
down, sort of watching out for pronunciation of words, because literally the way we speak is we're literally speaking like a collection of words, and the way you pronounce those words are important. And I find that, you know, sometimes it's not like people, um, it's not like you're not communicating well. It's just sort of not easy for people who aren't very sort of familiar with your accent to understand you. Now, when I go up to Scotland, sometimes I don't understand my clients, right? You know, I've worked with clients from certain parts of the world that I just have to listen to them for a couple of weeks before I actually really, you know, understand what they're saying. So I would say, you know, if you know, we could just look at how to slightly change pronunciations. So, you know, sort of speaking your, the words you speak would be easily understood by people. I think that's definitely one of the things, sort of our advice. And a lot of people will say that, but it really does help. And the other suggestion is to get, um, you know, someone who is close to you, who is perhaps more managerial, who is a very good communicator, to observe you over time and give you feedback, like
Hmm.
regular feedback. I remember one of my managers, like, you know, I'll go into a meeting with him and I'll just be so wowed by the way he would conduct himself, you know, who use all those really big consulting terms, overarching, you know, he'll be so impressively articulate. Like, who wouldn't want to listen
Yeah.
to, to him with the way he would just present with the right mix of words and the right balance of sort of confidence and tone. And I literally just had to approach him and say, well, Charlie, can you help me out here? And we did have a couple of sessions where he pointed out how I did at a session, you know, like the use of tone, the use of language, um, and everything else that I needed to work on. And that really helped me. So I'll sort of suggest, yeah, getting someone to sort of observe you and provide feedback. And then also, you know, just tapping into resources available. I've been on a number of courses. You know, there was one that I went through last year, which was a leadership course, but there was a module around communication, and it was all about speaking with impact, communicating with impact. You know, thinking about the the emotions you want to spark, the impression you want to make, right?
Hmm.
The sort of outcomes you want to achieve before you speak.
Hmm.
And because if you don't, you wouldn't get the outcomes you want to achieve. And communication is an art, and I feel like sometimes we don't really understand how complex it is.
Hmm.
You know, so I think just, you know, reading up on the art of communication and how you can sort of speak and communicate more effectively, you know, would certainly do a lot of good.
Wow, thank you so much, Liz. That's perfect. That's amazing. So I have a question here from IJ, and I also have that personal question as well. As overly emotional, and I think I would also like to add that bit of, I think some of us here have had conversations around the fact that I don't know if it's a good thing for people to say that, oh, you're very passionate. I'm beginning to think that, is there really something about this whole passionate? Is there something wrong with our communication? You know, in terms of how do you avoid? Okay, so I can see people raising their hands. I'll call you shortly. Sorry about that. So, how do you handle difficult situations without coming across as being overly emotional? And then the whole idea of, you know, people, I don't know, I feel like a lot of we black people, they tend to say that we're very passionate, we're very energetic. Is it a good thing? Like almost all my feedback this year for extracurriculars was all about passionate and energy. And I'm like, oh my God, is there what's happening here? You know, so I would like you to please touch on that in terms of, you know, body
Yeah, can I check that you can all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, do you know, this is an interesting question because I remember like someone saying a couple of years ago that, oh, someone said that I'm a very disruptive person. Can you imagine? This was like 4 years ago, and I think it's because, like, you're as a black person, as a black female, in the UK, in the workplace, sometimes, you go through certain experiences that frustrate you, and we're human, so you act out that frustration, that colleague is rude or inappropriate with you, and you sort of, you change your tone with them, or you're a bit more sort of, emotional and passionate when you speak with them. And so, yeah, I've definitely been labeled as emotional, as even disruptive, because I just didn't want to take nonsense. but but I would say one of the things that I've learned, and it's something that I learned sort of later. I wish I learned it earlier in my career, right? Is that sometimes, emotions are good, right? There's nothing wrong with being emotional, but in the workplace where everything is purely professional, you have to try as much as you can to be objective, or to try and take an unemotional approach to things. And I say that because sometimes I've been overly emotional, with how I've responded to things, and it's sort of damaged my relationship with colleagues, or it's meant that colleagues have sort of had an impression of me that is just not true. And if we're not careful, right, and because of the experiences that we go through, which is now becoming sort of more apparent because of Black Lives Matter and the conversations that are going on across the world and in the workplace, um, and because people just don't understand us, we will get sort of misunderstood a lot. So my suggestion is to not think about the short term and how you feel, but think about the long term. Think about the impression you want to make. Remember that actually, at the end of the day, it's a professional context, it's a professional relationship, and try to be unobjective with how you approach it. And to be more practical, sometimes what you might do is maybe just speak to someone, to sort of just open up about what's happened, diffuse the situation a little bit, or take a break before you sort of respond and address the situation. I would say, as much as possible, particularly when someone's done something wrong, there are other ways, or something inappropriate, something that's upset you, there are other ways to handle it, um, that are not emotional, but still sort of get the outcomes that you want to achieve. But hopefully that answered your question, because it's something that I've experienced a lot. And as I said, I've come from people saying, "Oh, Elizabeth, she's so this, she's so assertive, she's so this," you know. She gets emotional. So people saying, "Oh, really, really enjoyed working with Elizabeth." To having a lot more people that have worked with me, that enjoyed working with me, and continue wanting to work with me. And it's because I've just had to put up with a lot of their interesting behaviors at the start, and try to look past what they've done and try to be professional with how I respond, and unobjective with how I respond. It's very tough, but I'd say it takes time as well. You just have to keep practicing, and you get there.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I think that also shows a very big difference between Africa and the UK. Because in the UK, like, once you're at work, they expect you to be a certain way. You can't just say you want to be yourself and say how you feel. Like, you actually, it's strictly business and strictly professional. There's no family, there's no, at work, it's strictly business, and there is a certain way to behave. Thank you so much. So I'll just call Oge. Oge, your hands have been raised. Did you have a question? Please, if you do, kindly unmute yourself. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Bumi. Salah.
Hi.
This has been a good session. Thanks for all the inputs. Something to take away for me is the art of communication, and how important it is to adapt your communication style to your audience. So I have a question, and my question has to do with networking and building relationships in the workplace. So Elizabeth, when you started, so for someone who has built a career in a foreign country, right? When you started your career and so far in building your career, how important has it been, to network with other people, to build relationships, in terms of, for example, how important is it to have that key relationship or a referral from a senior colleague or your peers, and how have you been able to leverage that so far in your
That,
career?
that's a brilliant question again. And I say that because, it's really important to have those strategic relationships. It's important to have relationships, with, to sort of, have good relationships with your colleague. It's also important to have those strategic relationships, so relationships with very senior people, that would, provide you access to them. Also mean that they're invested in you and they will do anything to support and sponsor you. And I think more importantly, as minorities in the UK, it's even more important because, naturally, people won't look out for you. And that's just the way it is. And it's just as simple as, meeting them, making a first good impression, keeping that communication and that relationship going, and over time making sure that you're bringing value to them as well. And in turn, they would support you, they would sponsor you, they'll look out for you. And if they're not, then, make sure that you're approaching them, and in the most subtle way possible, you're letting them know the areas where you need their support. And in all my experience, every time, where I've had to approach someone, they've been more than willing to help.
Wow, that is so good, Elizabeth. And I think from my experience in Accenture, and for most of us in Accenture here as well, like, I think one way that senior people would always need help with is like extracurricular activities and driving initiatives. Like, they don't have time for that, but they've got all those big ideas. For example, they want more women in tech. They don't know what to do about it. They just know that they want more women in tech. And if you have ideas, like Ebu and IJ here have organized things that have to do with Black Lives Matter, like women in security, Black women in security. Like, these are things that they know they want to do something about it, but sometimes those senior guys, they don't have like the granular ideas, and they don't want to be too burdened about the details of implementation. So sometimes you can actually bring up these initiatives if you sense that they are passionate about those things, and sell it to them, and they become the sponsors for those ideas, and you do all the groundwork, you do all the running around, and you keep them in touch about how things are going. And that's a very good way for you to add value to them, and that also brings value. So it's actually like an exchange, actually. So it's not just you have senior people sponsoring you and you're not doing anything. So obviously one has to look for ways to help them as well, and they would always have things that they're thinking about that they want to do, so that's so good. I'll just read out Esther's question. She said, and I think this is a very, very good question as well. Did you at any time in your journey experience imposter syndrome? If you did, how did you overcome it? And it would be good to say how you transited from Accenture to PwC, and in terms of, so as it relates to that question, Elizabeth.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I am still trying to manage my imposter syndrome. I'm not there yet. And that's what I'm realizing, regardless of like how much you achieve, right, or how much progression you make, you would still sometimes have to deal with those confidence issues, those issues where you're like, those issues that sort of make you doubt yourself or feel like you're not deserving. And as Bemi said, I transitioned from Accenture to PwC to a significantly more senior role. So I was new to the company. Let's again remember, Black, female, African. And sometimes it's sort of driven by the way people treat you, or the reactions you get from people, or the way, or the insecurities that you have as well. And so there was definitely a lot of imposter syndrome type issues that I had to deal with at the onset. And I'd say one of the things that helped me just overcome it was to open up about it to people, you know. So, I'll open up to my partner and say, oh, do you know what, I feel like this, and he would dispel my concerns and be like, don't worry, you're great, you're the best person for the job. And you need those people around you. I think sometimes you need to also deal with it with affirmation, with the feedback that you get, not just the thoughts and the words in your head. Yeah. So in summary, I'd say, um, as you establish yourself sort of further, you become more confident. You would sort of feel a lot more like stronger entitlement. Your imposter syndrome would start to sort of decline a little bit, but also as you get more feedback from people, as you get more affirmation from people, as you open up to people about how you feel and let them encourage you, and you would feel better and get better.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I think that is so good. And yeah, I don't know if anyone else has a question. We actually need to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. It's just a 1 hour session. But so far, Elizabeth, that has been brilliant. I think you've given us so many points to work with, given us so many actions to work on. And, one thing I would also say about Elizabeth, I think from what you've said as well, I think the central theme that I also get is the fact that you're very open to feedback. And I think that is so good, because you've talked a lot about asking people to actually assess you, asking people to, tell you how you're doing, how you're performing. And I think that's one thing I'd like to encourage every one of us to be open to as well. Because other people see us better than we see ourselves. So I guess it's easier when, of course, you see trusted people, and particularly people that are kind of working or doing things that we desire to do. They will be in a position, not just random people. I mean, if someone doesn't know how to communicate, how would they give a constructive feedback about communication? So I guess it's also a point of, when you see someone who is operating at the level that you really want to do, that you want to operate in, then it's very good to reach out to those people. So as we wrap up this session, just trying to keep it to 1 hour, keeping it short and sweet. Okay, yes. So we'll just take that last question from Ebon, which says, can you recommend any books on grooming communication skills or building strategic relationships? It could be online courses as well, any specific materials, or we can send it to them afterwards if you don't have any at the moment. Liz?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and I'll forward on a book. I'm just trying to find the name, but the one of the books that I'll definitely recommend is a book by Kate Ferrazzi, and it's titled Never Eat Alone, and it really teaches like the importance of building strategic relationship and the importance of social capital, and thinking more about and thinking strategically about your network and the strength of your network and the impact it would have on your success and your progression. And I think it's a book that doesn't just touch on like the workplace dynamics, but what you learn there extends beyond the workplace into other facets of your life. So I definitely recommend it. I'd say like communication skills, what I would actually recommend, and I'll send some books across to me later, is doing a course as opposed to reading a book. I did a course last year at the Old Vic. So basically it was taught by people that train actresses and actors on how to speak with impact. And you actually don't realize that how much arts goes behind, the way actresses and actors sort of portray themselves and speak, in sort of in performances. And to be honest, I'll recommend that because I'll find out if it's something that can be taken by anyone, but there'll be other similar courses that you can take virtually or sort of physically, where at the start they would assess your communication and then take you through a journey where you are sort of giving feedback and are allowed to improve, because I think it should be a very, very interactive process, and it's certainly a journey, because it'll take some time to sort of get to the desired level of sort of articulation and impression you want to get to.
Okay, Liz, that's amazing. That's amazing. So thank you. So Liz, do you remember the author for Never Eat Alone?
It's Kate Ferrazzi. Let me just get his. I'll just paste his name in the chat window. 1 sec.
Yeah, and I think for the online course you mentioned as well, maybe you can send it to me afterwards. And I think for people here, because I haven't gotten people's email addresses, so if you can send a DM on Instagram to at Ops Network, I can, just forward all these recommendations to you. And yeah, if you can just do that. And obviously for my friends here that obviously you guys have me on WhatsApp, you can always reach out to me. Okay, that's so good. Thank you, Kids Ferrazzi. Okay, so that's really good. So, Elizabeth, you said so much today, and I think the key points, I would just like to reiterate a few things. I think when you started at the beginning, you told us about how you've been very deliberate about growing. You've not left it to chance. It's not been a case of, you recognized very early how you're different from a lot of people here, haven't grown up in Nigeria. And what you said is very true about in Nigeria, a lot of people that grew up in Nigeria, you're actually like middle class or high class. So you're in a place where you're visible, and then you just come to a different country and you start hearing things like, oh, minority, oh, all those terminologies we're not used to it growing up. So I think it was good that you talked about the fact that you recognized the fact that you were different very early and you started working on it. And you were not, and one other thing that everyone can testify to is that you've not you've not been someone that has been complaining, but rather you've been using all the challenges to find a way to improve. So people tell you, you come across as a certain way and you just take it as a feedback to grow. And you've also linked that to the fact that this is actually part of the things that's giving you the opportunities that you've had now. And I must also say that congratulations to you on being one of the top 100 tech women in the UK. I don't know if it's global or in the UK in 2018. That was really profound. Your transition from Accenture to PwC, managing people from different countries, that's really, really incredible. So well done. And you talked about the impact of being professional, about the fact that lateness is actually a big deal here. Like African time, we joke about it in Nigeria, but for white people, that actually passes a very strong impression about you. Even if I know you've told me personally about even 1 minute and 2 minutes late, sometimes these guys actually pick up on it. So it's something that we should also be mindful of as well. You talked about being open-minded, and that's, and then you talked about adapting as well, which is true. Sometimes we think it's difficult to adapt, but look at all of us now. We're online, adapting to everything. And then talking about the fact that just being deliberate about taking courses on leadership, communication, and just keep building strategic relationships. So thank you so much, and I would like to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us today. That will be the end of our session, and please keep in touch with the Ops Network on Instagram. I think we're on Facebook now. Yes, Omola is our social media manager, so I think we have a Facebook page now, and we have Twitter. We are on all of these platforms. You can keep in touch. If there are specific topics that you would like to hear about, please let me know. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Elizabeth. I don't know if you have any final words, but that's really it for today.
Yeah, I'll just say final words is, you can really, really build an extremely successful career in the UK, or in any part of the world. As Bemi said, the key thing is adapting your mindset and just continuing with identifying those things that you need to work on, and just working on them.
Perfect. Thank you, Elizabeth. You're definitely an example that embodies that. You're not just building a career like hustling, you're actually thriving. You're actually being at the top, and that's so good. Thank you for being an example to us, and I'm sure everyone here has been inspired. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Let us know your comments. Give us your feedback as well on all the social media platforms. So my friends, give us your feedback on WhatsApp, please. Let's know how it was for you. And thank you, Ebon. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Estee. Thank you, Marvelous. Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you.